Welcome to the Holistic Career Change Podcast, one-stop shop for everyone feeling stuck in their career and who are looking to identify, change, and succeed at their new fulfilling work. I'm your host, Vilma Oseita. Let's go. Hi, gorgeous career changers. How are you today? I'm not going to do a very long introduction. I'm not going to talk about the weather. I was listening back to some of my episodes and I was like, why do I talk about the weather so much? 5 years living in England left a mark. We have a guest today on the podcast, and you're about to experience a super inspiring, kind, warm, healing presence of my client, Yvette, who went through a whole career change journey, and she so generously agreed to share the details of her experience and her wisdom and advice for other career changers like yourself. I'm so eager to share her story. I'm so excited, if you can't tell, because it's not necessarily a typical one. And I believe that part of my responsibility in this arena as one of the voices who are encouraging people to follow their personal legend, to find their meaningful life's work, is to also feature and normalize a wide range of ways, the diversity in ways a career change journey can unfold for different individuals, because we are all so unique. And the same is true for a career change journey. It will unfold uniquely in the way that will be beneficial for you. And I often see those, I would say, toxic and inflammatory messages around us that we're bombarded with about this idea of quick, radical change. And what seems to be promoted is quick results, massive pivots, overnight clarity, overnight success. And while I do believe it's possible, the reality of things, though, is that this often creates unrealistic expectations within us based on constantly reinforced assumptions that we must be seeking, and we're able to create that radical change really, really quickly. The truth is that radical true change is often built upon those tiny, mini internal resolutions, those daily, tiny choices towards more alignment and more inner peace and more truth. That is what then, at one point in our story, can create this sensation of overnight change. But when you look back, when you analyze the anatomy of change, you can then very clearly see that it actually is made up out of those consistent daily shifts. And Yvette is such a beautiful example of allowing herself to, first of all, acknowledge and then give herself permission to move through change in a pace that feels safe to her. And I do see Yvette as this change agent, and I believe that she holds such an important message that she helps to normalize the slower pace. So while she did go through the whole holistic career change journey, she did it her way. And it was more of a lateral change versus a massive career pivot for her, at least at this point in time of the recording of the podcast. And she did it in bossa nova style. And you'll have to continue listening to the episode to understand what bossa nova has to do with her career change. It's actually really, really beautiful and inspiring. And I'm almost jealous, you guys, that you will get to experience her energy. I definitely feel like I will be going back to this episode myself. So do make sure you listen to this episode till the end. I know it's a little bit of a longer one, but she has such amazing advice for all of you who are on this journey or who are thinking of embarking on this journey. It's so healing. She made me totally teary-eyed in the end. I think this is just how my interviews go these days. I usually end up crying by the end of the episode. I really hope you will enjoy this, and I'm not going to babble any longer. Here's the interview. Hi, Yvette. Welcome to the Holistic Career Change Podcast.
Hey, Vilma. It's really good to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited. Okay, let's start from the beginning. Why don't you introduce to the listeners a little bit, just a short background of who you are, where you come from, what you'd like the listeners to know before we dive into the career change story.
That's perfect. So I'm around 39 years old, mixed race, part Kenyan and part Indian, and that really informs like a lot of what sort of how I show up in the world. Right now, I live in Switzerland. I've been here for around 15 years, and I'm working for a humanitarian organization. So I do research in international law, and I've always been a little bit of a scholar. I was one of these kids that was always really good in school. So I got good grades when I was in primary school, and then I went on and got good grades in secondary school. And I always just sort of had this PhD goal in mind. And I went to university, did my bachelor's, did a master's, and then ended up maybe in 2021, so last year, getting a PhD in international law. And I actually had a little bit of a career change in my academic career, because I started with studying just general international relations, and then for the between my master's and my bachelor's, I switched to studying international law because I was kind of on that journey of looking for alignment, and international law felt like it was going to lead me towards more of that. And so since 2007, when I arrived in Geneva, I've been working, at the international level, sometimes with different NGOs, sometimes with the UN system, and now with this humanitarian organization, and also some universities on different things related to international law. And so right now, yes, I do research on the law of armed conflict, so the law that applies in wartime for this humanitarian organization.
Wow, that's just impressive. Also, you know what? I know what listeners will think. You have such beautiful, calming energy. I think it's just so nice to listen to you. Oh my gosh, you should get a podcast. Maybe one day. But yeah, this is very impressive. This is very impressive background. So let's kind of fast forward to the time when we connected. That was a bit over a year ago. And I remember really vividly receiving an email from you. We're laughing now. You were not laughing when you were sending the email. And the reason why I want to zone in on that, because I think there are so many people who can relate to the state that you were in. And I really want to offer them just more information and details about what was happening before you reached out. Because you sent me an email saying, just got back from holiday. I am just feeling so like, what was the word that you were using? You were saying that you were unconsolable. That was that, right? And you were like, I just want to, fighting the urge to crawl under my desk and cry. Like, I don't want to be here. Please, can we do something about this? Can you like go back to that time and share a little bit more details, as much as you remember what was happening, how you were feeling, that made you to then reach out and seek for support?
Absolutely. So like this was summer of last year, and I described already a little bit that I was doing this PhD and I was working in research. And so I was on that process for about 8 years, and the combination of having this PhD work and the research just meant that I burned out twice. It was long and exhausting, and the kind of thing that sort of resulted in me being quite unmotivated, and I was struggling with procrastination through the whole thing. Like I was struggling at work, I was struggling with my PhD. I had this system, which I think I described to you during our coaching, where I would just like literally shut down. I would need to sleep. Every time I had a deadline or something, I just have these panic naps, shut
Stress
down.
naps. Oh my goodness, yes.
Just like, I mean, I call them panic naps. It's just like I would be like, so much work to do, I'll just have a nap. And then somehow I finished my thesis and I defended it in March of last year, and I was just like on this cloud of feeling like I've achieved this thing, this huge thing in my life, and it just felt great. And then in the summer, I went on holidays. I had for the first time in like 10 years, I just had 2 weeks off where I wasn't taking work with me. I wasn't taking PhD stuff with me. I just had free 2 weeks. I saw friends. I went to places. I just relaxed. And that Monday, so the Monday when I came back to work, it was one of the most brutal feelings to just like walk back into the office, sit down, because I think what happened was that the vacation highlighted just how far away I was from being in alignment with what I actually want out of life. And I couldn't feel that because up until then, I just had the pressure of having to do all the things. It was just like, I just have to finish this and then I have to finish that. So that feeling didn't really have space. But then when I came back from this holiday, it was like, oh yeah, now there's space. Now you're done. And it's on. It was just kind of like, it's fully on now. And I was sitting at my desk just feeling like a mixture of trapped. I felt trapped by the circumstances. I felt really just disappointed because I was like, this was my dream job. Like, I fought really hard to have this job. This was the dream. And I was like, how can it feel so empty? And I remember coming into the office after lunch and I sat down at the desk and my energy, as soon as I sat down, just like disappeared into the floor. I had no more energy. And then I just felt like this rising anxiety of like, oh no, how can this feel so bad? I'm done with the pitch. Like I've done all the things everybody said I should do and all the things I thought I wanted, and it's just not okay. And I think I wrote in my email that I fought the urge to crawl under my desk. The reality was I actually did like,
oh, you did
crawl under my desk for like 15 minutes because I felt like this little young part of me that was just like, this isn't good. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. So I just had to take her under the desk and be like, okay, this is like a little cave where we can just feel our feelings. It's okay. And that was just like, okay, so now we've done all the things. We've done all the shoulds. Now, who are you? And that was just like very painful. And also there was a feeling of like, I can distinctly remember at some point approaching a similar place during the PhD process. And I made this inner bargain with myself. I was like, let's just finish this. Like whichever part was protesting inside of me, I was like, look, just give me some time. Help me get to there, and then we'll change something. And that part came like for payday. It was like, yeah, I upheld my end of the deal. You've done the PhD. Now you promised us you'd change something. Where's the change? And I really felt like this inner sense of almost like, I don't want to betray myself.
Yeah.
I don't want to break that promise that I made to myself. So I was there like no consolation under the desk because there was this feeling of I'm letting myself down. And then so when I got home that day, I was just like, I need to do something. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I was sure I wasn't going to feel horrible like this. So I just like, I was in sort of a podcast, like just binge listening to different podcasts. And I was like, maybe I can find one that like gives some tips on career change. So I literally just blindly typed career change into Spotify and went through a couple of the podcasts that were suggested. And yours was one of the ones that came up. And as soon as I listened to the first one, I was just like, give me more, give me more, give me more. And I listened to them sort of compulsively for like 2.5 weeks. And I was just like, right, I need to write this woman an email.
Yeah. And now you're here.
And I'm here. And I have to say, like, I'm sure listeners of the podcast also relate, like, those 2.5 weeks, like, I was already working. I found that so much of this, the exercises that you offer on the podcast, like, I just went through my notes preparing for this conversation, and I'd actually been, like, following the prompts, following some of the exercises, the things that you'd put in the show notes. So even before working with you, it was already helping. I have this little note after I did one of the exercises. So this is before even contacting you, where I was just like, I don't know this woman, but thank you, Vilma.
Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's real.
Right. You know what? You're highlighting something so important and so heartbreaking that I think a lot of us have faced, like as previous career changers, current career changers, people in general, is like ticking all those boxes that we are told we need to tick in order to feel happy or achieved, and then arriving to that point just to find that emptiness,
Mm.
right? And that despair, and it's heartbreaking for you to have worked for so long and so diligently to achieve those goals just to find that, uh-oh, I'm not feeling
Uh-oh.
it.
Mm-hmm. I'm just making noises because yes.
Yeah. Totally. And I think, like I said, this is so relatable for so many of us. And then we go like, okay, now what? Now I feel like I need to start from square one. And like you said, get to know myself and understand. So what would feel like fulfillment and meaning and excitement for me work-wise?
Mm-hmm.
Because I never really properly asked myself these questions because there was always manuals that I was following that were telling me what I should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I love that. Thank you for sharing. I know that a lot of people will relate. Maybe not crawling under the desk, which I didn't know you actually did that, which is so cute. I mean, cute and like not really sad. I don't know if anyone saw you, but totally relatable. Right. So another piece that I wanted to talk to you about, just moving on. So we started the process, we started working together, and something that you said in our last session that kind of hit home, even though I know that, but I don't think I vocalize it like that, which is when you came into the process, you realize that career change is not an isolated event. And a lot
Mm.
of the times, in order to work towards a change, all of the areas of your life will be affected. And we'll need to look into that like holistically because it's interconnected. And so we need to approach it like that. Whereas a lot of the times when people come in, they think, oh, it's just career. Let me just figure out career and then I'll move on and like answer all the other questions. But it doesn't really work like that. Can you talk to me about that? And what was your experience in terms of this?
Wow, that's so true. And it's one of the reasons why as soon as I started listening to your podcast, I was like, yeah, I want to listen to more of this. Because you weren't just talking about, yeah, I'll help you, with your job. And there was this real recognition from the beginning, before we even started working together, that your job is part of your life. Like it's just one part of your life. And if there's sort of lack of alignment in one place, it's going to bleed into lots of other different places. And then the converse, like if there's more alignment in one place, it's going to sort of pull other places, other areas of your life more into alignment. And I really found that to be the case through this journey with you. And I remember, like I said, I went back to my notes, um, and I had a couple of questions that I had written down to prepare for our introductory call. And one of the questions that was for me really important um, were, well, maybe I'll back up a little bit and say I'm going to answer the question in several parts. So the first part that touches on like this holistic aspect was, I needed to feel, and I wrote down in one of these intro questions, that I needed to feel like I could bring all of myself. So when I introduced myself, I said I'm mixed race. I grew up in a developing country. That means that because of the way my life has been, the things that I was struggling with in terms of career change just kind of looked particular. They looked like they were informed by this, like all of these things that I bring. And I was like, I need to be able to talk about what it's like being a mixed race person trying to make their way in the world. I needed to be able to talk about some of the constraints that I was feeling. When I say I felt trapped, part of what I was feeling trapped by were just on one hand, financial constraints, because I have obligations to my family back home that they need my support. And so it's not just like, oh, I'm going to stop working and like try to figure out what I want in my life. Because it's like, no, I need to send money back to mom. And I know other people have similar obligations, like people have kids, people have aging parents or sick, people who are sick that they're caring for. But in my case, I needed just to be able to know that I could bring that part. And then another part was like, I have Switzerland makes it very, like there's a migration policy that's quite restrictive. And so I'm here on a certain kind of permit. and I can only stay here on this permit doing this kind of work. So it makes it difficult to think about career change. And sort of I needed to be able to feel like I can go somewhere and bring all this stuff with me. And I was really scared to like ask, and I wasn't even sure what my question was, but I was like, I just need to articulate this to Vilma and to see if we can work together, because this is going to be important for me to bring. And I asked the question, and I really appreciated how you replied, because you were just really grounded and open, and you weren't really telling me that you had answers, but you were just willing to receive me, all of me, with all my different questions. And then we could sort of separate out which things we were going to tackle and sort of take things step by step. And that was one place where I felt like, yeah, okay, this is holistic. Like all of these things are relevant to the career change process. And then also there's just been like different steps along the way where I found this holistic approach really useful. So like, I remember, I think it was our third or fourth call where I was like, I showed up for the coaching call and you were just like, what's going on? Because you felt like my energy was somewhere and I was having a thing in my relationship and I was just preoccupied with that. And you were like, okay, well, then this isn't going to work. Let's deal with that. And it wasn't in a sort of unbounded kind of, like not disrespecting any boundaries, like you weren't trying to be my therapist or anything, but it was just like, this thing is there and it's affecting your life now. So let's talk about it. And that helped me so much. And it's weird because in talking about that, we got to see that there were some thoughts that I was having in that area of life that sort of reflected back on, I mean, it's the same brain thinking the same thoughts. It's just about different things. So that was really helpful. And also like when we were just talking before the podcast, when I'm sick, there have been a couple of instances where I've fallen sick and you're also just really there to be like, okay, what's this about? Like, did you get enough to eat? Are you resting? Like, and just being able to be a full self in relation to this career change process, I think I can't imagine why we would do it another way. Like, I know that it's the norm to do it the other way. We're just like, let's talk about your work life. But for me, like the stuff that's the unhelpful thoughts that are in my brain about like race or just different ways that imposter syndrome will show up for me, and the way that thoughts sort of manifest in my relationship, that's the crazy unhelpful stuff that's also there when I'm thinking about my career. So if we're not able to deal with some of those things, then I can only sort of go halfway or like partway in the career change process. And I mean, like I said, since the beginning, I've just really appreciated that I could ask to bring all of myself and that was just your plan. That's the way you like to do things.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And that does make sense. And I still relate to you because I used to have the same problem when I was going through my career change. And I always tell like my clients or potential clients, I was like, I was the most dramatic career changer you've ever met. Like I literally took me over 3 years of drama in my head and having all of these unsupporting thoughts and really not knowing how to piece myself together and all of these aspects of who I am and what I want and what I believe in and where I come from and make sense of it. And that did include, like what you said, the thought work. That did include certain aspects or different areas of my life that I was dealing with, right? And I would go to different practitioners and they would like feedback of one aspect of me. Like, oh, an astrologer would tell me like, Vilma, your moon is in Gemini. You're good with communications, And I'd be like, what do I do with it? Do I become a journalist? Do I write? What does that mean? Right. Or I would go to a practitioner and like what you said, they would only see an aspect of me that they specialize in. And I never felt like I could bring all of the parts within me that would be seen, accepted, and they would feel at home. Is like, no, I come in here and I can talk about all these things, especially like you said, we are human beings. And a lot of the times we can't focus and problem solve many things at the same time. And I love constraint in that way. So if at that point you had a relationship question or issue was on your mind, that meant that no matter how many career conversations we'll have, we'll kind of be wasting time because they will not be landing for you.
I mean, that I just wanted to say, like, and when you did those things for me, that just helped me relax because I was like, oh, I don't have to compartmentalize and like shut off one part and like put it in a corner. It's like there's space here for bringing all the things, and it helped me feel really confident in the work that we were doing, because I was just like, it's kind of also this way of just allowing yourself to show up the way you are, which helps you figure out what you want to do, because you're not in these different subtle ways trying to silence yourself again. At least for me, since most of my journey has been about just listening to my own voice, instead of listening to what everyone else thinks I should do. Being in a process where it was like, oh, I can just be here and be unhappy with my relationship or be sick or whatever, was really, really important.
That's good. I also don't want this to turn into like an ad for Vilma services. So I want to talk as well about things like that are useful, or maybe people can relate. And one of them, you and I like talk about it, laugh about it, but it was a very sort of pivotal moment when we were in the middle of the blueprint process for you, where we were filling in all those aspects, having conversations, you were working on your love work, right? Bringing that to the session and us like analyzing and sorting out what's truly yours and what feels aligned and what Yvette had to take on as a layer, as a character trait, as something in order to survive or collect those little ticks and follow the program, right? So we had to really sort that through. And I remember in one of the sessions, you like just nonchalantly said something that like stroked me so hard energetically, where you said, because I know that you were practicing with the Plum Village, right? And you'll talk probably a little bit more about that. And I knew that that was a big part of your personal practice, and I really always respected that. And you said, one of the ideas I sometimes have is like, I wonder if I should like become just a Buddhist nun and join them in the Plum Village and just live there and serve people like that. And I remember you said that, and it was not that I was shocked at the idea. I remember just looking at your blueprint at the stars in front of me and had this like bolt of energy go through my body, which usually a lot of the times as an intuitive, that means to me that I need to pause and something is really important that is unfolding for the client. And I remember looking at your stars and I was like, Yvette, it's actually alignment for you to do something like that. There are a lot of aspects that would be met in your blueprint to your core that would probably give you quite a lot of fulfillment and meaning to do something like that. Obviously, there is, a lot of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, sacrifice or decisions that you need to make in order to transition into that lifestyle. But I think what we need to do is pause right now and really give you space to review that, right? I think I gave you some prompts, some questions to think about, and take some time to stay with that idea consciously and intentionally versus allowing it to play out as a kind of like a fun thing you would want to do once in a lifetime. And I asked you, Yvette, why did you never bring it up? Because it was midway through our process. And you said, well, because I don't know what you said. I don't know if you remember, but it was something along the lines of like, well, when I would tell it to people, people think I was joking, or something along the lines where you never felt fully safe to actually even talk about it. Can you remember, and can you talk a little bit about that and your story relationship with Buddhism and what that meant for you?
Yeah. And like just a little caveat, like you say, this shouldn't turn into ad for Vilma services, and I'm going to try not to do that.
Okay.
But I might not be fully successful.
Okay.
But yeah, so Buddhism is something like I've always been, like interested in spirituality in different forms. Like I'm half Indian, so that I have this influence also from my Indian side. But I encountered Buddhism less as a spiritual practice, like less as like from this religious side, and more from oh my God, these are concrete tools that help me when I'm suffering. And I had a moment of really intense suffering that I couldn't really understand. And I encountered this particular Buddhist monk whose name is Thich Nhat Hanh. And I encountered his teachings, and I just found that in the things he was teaching, there was concrete practices that helped me feel better. And so I was like, okay, this stuff works. So I'm going to just keep practicing it. And then at some point I discovered that he had founded a little community of practitioners, monks and nuns that was in Bordeaux. So I was like, oh, I'm not that far. I'm going to go. And as soon as I got there, I was like, I'm home. Like whatever this is this is me. Like I'm home here. This is great. And so I was so comfortable with the practices, and I was inspired by the people and the community that had been founded. And I spent 2 weeks there the first time, and then I went back to the monastery, and I spent 4 weeks there the second time. And this became a huge part of my life because I felt like this works. I saw how it helped me, and I saw how it helped other people. And so in my brain, this idea of like, maybe I should just, like, this is great, and these people are helping other people, and that's what I really want to do is to just make the world hurt a bit less. And that's what they're doing, that's what they're doing. So maybe I should just go join them because I love it there, and it's a great place to be, and I can learn about myself, and I can be there. And somehow every time I thought about that, it was just kind of fanciful. It was a fanciful thought. It was kind of like a little joke in my head. And I couldn't really take the thought seriously. I mean, it's not true. Like I bought books, and I tried to think about it, and I talked to some of the monastics, like the monks and the nuns, about it. But always in like, I'll think about this deeply later. And then when I would say it out loud to like other people, the reaction, like I remember telling it to one of my mentors, and she was just like, are you crazy? Just like completely shutting down the idea. And so another moment in like our coaching that really gave me confidence was when, I don't know why we were talking about it. I was talking about Plum Village. And then I said something like, yeah, sometimes I think about becoming a nun. And you were like, hold all the horses. Stop right now. Because there's something here. And it was really like this moment of getting permission to explore an idea. And I think that there must be so many people out there who have these ideas that might be really deeply like things they should look at deeply, maybe even pursue, but they don't give themselves permission because it's not done, or it's kind of out there. And I think we just need more people to do the out there stuff. Like mainstream is not working. So like, yeah, follow your mad dream. And the fact that we could pause and I could really spend time with this idea not like, yeah, just explore that, like the way you would tell a 5-year-old who says they want to be a unicorn when they grow up. It was kind of more like,
let's explore being a unicorn, but yeah, let's do that.
It was more like, yeah, think about this, because maybe this is a path that offers you really like a fulfilling life. And I was able to do that and come to the point where right now in my life, I don't want to join the monastery, but there are really important things about that whole community that I want in my life. And maybe, like I think at different points in time, you answer questions differently. So right now I'm not wanting to go join the monastery, but having the space to think about that, and not then like 10 years down the road having a giant regret, like, oh, I should have gone and become a nun, is something I'm really grateful to have had the chance to do. So yeah, I think it's so important for people to have permission to just follow the things that light them up.
Yeah. And that's what our process was about. Like, it's a lot of the times, remember, then one of the things that you said that you liked was us talking about play, because you have such a beautiful connection with your inner child. And because you've spent so many years in such, I would say, like very structured research. What's the word that I'm looking for? structured research, black and white, more rigid environments, I think you never felt safe to allow your inner child to come and play. And you and I spend a lot of time talking about it is like, no, Yvette needs to play. And all of the parts that we're resisting certain practices that you and I tried to introduce with thought work and things like that at the beginning, right? We would talk about is like that parts within you that you don't give space to play and do something fun. These are the ones that will resist anything.
So real. Like, yeah, I have, and that's something that surprised me through this work. Like, I wasn't expecting, like I was expecting to come in here and then go through the process, and then you'd be like, yeah, go be a psychotherapist or something.
Yeah.
And I got here, and there was this really loud voice inside me that was just like, I want to play. I want to play more. And I was like, what am I going to do with that?
Yeah.
And it was really interesting because, and I wonder if this is the case for more people. The way I grew up, like I said, half Indian mama, there were only three options when I was younger: doctor, lawyer, banker.
100%. And some of my clients who are Indian background, they'll be laughing listening to this podcast because they're like, that's the choice.
I see you, my Desi friends. Like,
yeah.
So there were three options, and they were all very serious options. And I kind of did both of them. So I'm a lawyer who has a PhD, so I'm a doctor lawyer.
You're like a parent's dream.
Yeah,
like,
banker is not going to happen because I'm not good with numbers. But like, I sort of had this idea also through like an education system that wasn't about exploration or creativity, but more about reproducing the things, like regurgitating the things that the teacher told you. So all very serious, very kind of head heavy work. And in my head, somehow, that was what work meant. So a career had to involve this very rigid, serious, heady stuff. And and throughout our process together, like that's just been a huge thing that you have had to bring me back to, like, hey, there's this part of you that wants to play. And I mean, I feel like I had to build this bridge between the one part of me that's just like, I don't know, I think I described it to you once when we were talking about this, and I was like, yeah, I had to play at home, and then when I went to school, I had to be the serious one. And this division between the work life and the rest of life is still very strong in me, and I have to do a lot of sort of intentional work to make a bridge between these two worlds, and allow that little playful one to show up in work, because it's really boring for me when she's not there. And I don't want to do anything. I'm just like, yeah, well, I had to leave half of me behind, when I came to the office. So I don't want to do anything. But it's also just really hard to undo that big wall that was built.
100%. That was years and years and years of experience programming and validation. You were validated when you were showing up in a certain way in certain settings. And with you, like this piece about the blueprint and spending time to actually going through your blueprint, and we identified certain themes for you, which is we don't have to go into that. If you remember, we had a pie chart, right? Like these are the three themes, and we need to find ways how to incorporate that into your work life. Otherwise, you will be resisting and stress napping and avoiding and finding it really hard to show up as you in the work setting. And I would laugh with you because sometimes I say like that you'd have like blueprint amnesia. Like sometimes you would come in and you, right? And you would be like, oh yeah, I'm confused and I need to make a decision. And I'll be like, did you check your stars? And you're like, oh yeah, that's right. I do need to check my stars. It's almost like what you said, we had to like build the bridge. And to some extent, you'll have to continue building that bridge to really believe that you can have a career that will be the full expression of who you are, where it's going to be safe for you to come in as you are in the way that you were showing up in sessions. Your career should allow you to also show up in the same way, all of you, because it's an extension of who you are. And for you to believe that those playful, creative, self-expressive parts not only can, but should be part of your career, of your business, of anything that or your pursuits or projects that you'll be creating in the future.
Yeah. And it almost felt like I didn't I couldn't trust the blueprints because it was so different from, I mean, I was getting this message that, oh yeah, you like this and you want to play. And I was just like, but that's not work. That's not that I can't trust that it's okay for me to want to bring this playful creative side into work. Work has to be this rigid, boring thing. I think that the I remember coming to you being like, I don't even know if this is true. Like I would come to conclusions about I don't know, things that I was interested in, or where it really showed up was my skills. We started doing a lot of work on identifying skills, and I just had this blank mind. Like if you asked me what are your skills, I'd be like, I don't know. Like I don't know what I'm good at. Then you would be like, but we wrote down all the things. Like we've literally done exercises where you've written down what your skills are. And I also had the thing where I had such a blank. I drew such a blank when it came to skills that I asked friends. I was like, I'm going to ask other people what they see my skills as. And they reported back to me stuff that I do that comes naturally to me that I didn't even think of as skill. I was just like, yeah, but I'm not good I can't code, or I can't do brain surgery. But they were consistently reporting like, you're really warm and you listen empathetically and you are good with people and you make people open up. And it's, like all of these things that are skills objectively that I just didn't even see as skills because they don't show up in the way that I expect skills to show up at work. All of that would be written down and we would catalog all of it. And then through the work, I'd be like, yeah, but I don't know what I'm good at. And you'd be like, oh my God.
Yeah, you need to connect with that like over and over and over again. And I love what you were talking about is like you would draw blank. And that's because I remind of this a lot because to people about unconscious competence, meaning that I'm competent in so many things. It is, and a lot of them will not be technical skills like for you, right? Because when we think of skills, we're like, I'm good at Excel. I can make a really good, like, killer PowerPoint presentation or whatever people make presentations on right now, right? And we were like, no, but there are so many other skills that are much more important that give you energy that people notice, that allow you to connect. These are the ones that we're interested in. But just because you take them for granted, you never really learned how to evaluate and highlight them for yourself and respect them. So when you did that exercise and you came back and you were like, oh my God, Vilma, these people really know me. Like they gave me all of this feedback and all of these skills that, wow, wow, they noticed me. Like they noticed that I'm good at that because it was such a kind of mind-blowing moment for you to realize that you're not just like this fluffy cloud and, you just walk around and try to do well at your job, but people actually notice and love and appreciate so many beautiful skills and qualities that you have.
Yeah. And it was this mind-blowing moment. And I love having done that exercise because that helped me realize it's not that I don't have skills. It's that I'm not using the things that I'm naturally good at in my career. So it was just, again, this separation of like, I'm good at stuff, but it's not really serious work stuff. Like I had such a hard time believing that those things are skills that you can integrate into a career.
Yeah. And monetize and get paid for that.
Yeah. Still, my brain is still kind of like, huh, really? But yeah. Process.
It's a process, 100%. Yeah. So you realizing that and you connecting with that, and we spoke about this before the recording, like thought work is not one and done. It's a continuous practice. You connecting with your blueprint, continuous practice, and that allows us to move into the next phase, I think, and talk about the actual transition that did happen, right? And that is that you decided to start applying for different, a little bit more aligned roles. So even though we saw that blueprint and it did show us really clearly of what are the core aspects and themes of your life for you to really feel fulfilled, some of them will have to be met for now in perhaps your hobbies or private life, and making sure you don't drop them. So you would feed your soul by doing certain creative pursuits and self express yourself in certain ways. However, when we were doing the analysis of the blueprint, you and I talked, because you're a musician as well, which by the way, you didn't tell people, right? And you have a connection to music. And when we were analyzing, like, what would you like your ideal day to feel like, look like? And you said, like, oh, it would be nice to have it like a bossa nova song, like kind of, flowy, rhythmic, but flowy and have a lot of space. And then when we were going through your transition and you started to apply for different roles that would feel a little bit more aligned, and you landed a role, and I'll let you talk about it and tell the listeners about what you landed. I feel like that's what happened. Like, you allowed yourself to go through your career transition in the bossa nova tempo without
Mm.
forcing yourself to do a massive, massive jump. You and I would joke when you went on holiday to Kenya, right? And we're like, oh, you should just like buy a farm and start building houses and teach people how to do it, which I'm still sure you will do eventually, right? But allowing yourself with limitations or the fears and concerns that you had in mind, which is the permits and certain financial commitments, what change can I introduce that would allow me to be a little bit more of the true Yvette and bring more of me to work without risking or scaring or completely like dysregulating my nervous system and doing something very, very new, right? How can I leverage my experience and still offer some change for myself? And I love that, because I think in this day and age, we're so impatient and there's a lot of urgency and there's a lot of, I don't know, like just what's being promoted is massive overnight change,
Mm.
which does not always happen. And when it happens, oftentimes it's not sustainable change. And I
Mm.
almost see you like as this poster child of following your inner pace and respecting that and allowing this to be a transitional change, but not saying this is where I'm going to stay. I'm going to continue down this path of trying to
Mm.
introduce more and more authentic elements into my life. So
Mm.
I'm kind of like I said, I shared a lot of details, but I still didn't say what you did. So talk to me about from your perspective how that transition went for you.
Well, I love everything that you said. So for me, the transition kind of started with I had first of all, just to acknowledge, I had a lot of resistance, like we were just discussing, and we got to this point in the career process, in the coaching process, where I was like, okay, I need to now kind of think. I've audited like what I'm good at, and I need to think what I want to do from here, and I couldn't. I just again was just drawing massive blanks. And then you offered me a reframe that was super helpful. You were like, okay, why don't you think about it as a hobby instead of a job? And it's like this combination of a job and a hobby. So it was kind of like my work hobby. And that word released me. It was just like, oh, okay, I can think about this. I don't have to think about a job. And so like this hobby exploration, I was just kind of like, yeah, I'd like to do something where I don't have to do so much research and where I can do lots of different things during the day. And I ended up looking, like I was just kind of scanning job boards and ended up finding two positions that I was really interested in. And one was a couple, but I followed through on one that was still in the organization that I was in, and another one that is that's in the UN. And I applied for both of these roles, and I could see how they would allow, because of some of the tools we use together, I could literally see that I could bring more of me. Like we could score how much of my skills would get used in the different positions, like the one I'm in now and the different other ones. So seeing that, like just having data to look at it was super helpful. So I landed the job in the UN system,
Yeah.
and yeah, really happy. And it's true, like it's a transitional shift. And by the way, I totally also bought the Kool-Aid that's like, yeah, you need to change career overnight. I drank it and fully,
Yeah.
like
You
came
need to be
in.
like a Jungian analyst tomorrow.
Exactly. I was like, I want to be a psychotherapist already. And then just working and like doing the process and realizing that I just needed really to consolidate a sense of trust. Like I needed to consolidate the sense that these things that people are telling me are my skills are actual skills. I just need to spend time using some of them and trust that before I, do many, many other things. And there, like we talked about these other considerations, like financial support for people, the permit, I can't just, go wherever. This transition position helps me feel stable. Like I feel like I'm not there's no risk. There's change that's happening and I can celebrate that change, which I'm not very good at celebrating small steps, but that's something I learned in the coaching process is that you don't jump to the top of the mountain. Like it's just not a thing. Mm-hmm. So each small step is going in the direction of wherever it is that you want to end up going, to the beach or to the mountain. And I am celebrating like the small steps that led to like first just applying for the job. And then it took a long time until the acceptance letter came.
Welcome to UN. Even though you have to tell people that given how quote unquote fast UN usually is, your process was really quick.
My process was way faster than it normally goes. and so like that just helps me feel like I'm making progress. It's not the dramatic career change that I think I envisaged, because it doesn't work for me. Because the other thing that I realized through the work is that I just want a bossa nova song of a life, like you mentioned. I just want this. I'm not really deep down someone who wants to be this capitalist mover and shaker and fast-paced life, which I always thought when I was younger. I was like, yeah, I want to be the secretary general of something or the CEO of something else and be
president of the world, Yvette. That was my dream. I'm going to be the president of the world.
And I'm like, I don't like it. I don't like to move so fast. I just coming to peace with like, yeah, I want slow mornings. I hate waking up early. I just want a life where I can have my slow mornings and I can have just this sense of, it's not like nothing's happening in a bossa nova song. There's a lot that's happening, but it's chill, it's jazzy, it's fun, it's playful, it's sensual, and those are things I want in my life, and I want to design that. So this element of just like lifestyle design to slowly somehow move in that direction of the bossa nova lifestyle that I want, and that includes the pace of my career change. I'm not going to do like a mosh pit career change where it's like one thing and then the next. It's gentler. And I'm really curious to see how it continues to unfold. Like, where does the song go next? But for now, like, I know that this next position, which I'll start next year, is going to give me just so many more different types of opportunities. There's going to be some research, because there's also like, and I think this is the other part to name, there's also a lot of fear for me and grief in like giving up these things that I have worked for. So there's a part of me that still needs to hold on a little bit. It's like, I don't want to say goodbye.
And I love that transitional period. So for the listeners, we're recording this in November and you're starting when? In January, right? January 9th? Or
yes. Exactly. You do remember January 9th.
I remember the negotiation period you had with them, which is like, give me a holiday, please, before I start. Right. So I love that you're even the way that the transition, actually you leaving this job and moving into UN, the way that it goes is also a bossa nova song, because it gives you that time and space to like really, say proper goodbye. And I know that you love the colleagues and you will be missing them, and for you to give that time to say like little goodbye and let go little by little, because that's what your nervous system needs as well.
Mm-hmm. And that grieving period is really important. Like, it's not, you talked to me a lot about feel the grief, and I was like, I don't feel any grief. I want to be done with this. And then as soon as this offer came through and I was like, oh, I'm leaving, then I was hit by this wave of like, but I love my colleagues and I love this team and I love this organization and I've worked so hard for this. And it just really needs time to be metabolized. I mean, for me, maybe others are different and have different paces, but I need like the full 3 months to go through the letting go of this step. And I'm not even really letting go, because I'm not making sort of very dramatic career shift. I'm still staying in an international organization. And let me talk to you about Bossa Nova. Nothing changes for me in terms of getting to work. Like, I will take the same bus, I will go to the same stop, and I will just turn right at the end of my little walk instead of turning left, because the organizations are literally one across the road from the other.
Love that.
So I still get to see my colleagues and stuff.
Yeah, I could still go lunch with them. I love that. And as I'm listening to you, what I'm really like just enjoying, you're like music to my ears, is that you really, I think through this process, really we're coming back home and recognizing what you need, and little by little giving yourself permission to want what you want. Without allowing, like you said, the outside influences to like give us that FOMO or just tell us what it should be like. And I think that just shows such a strength of character that you have, which I think sometimes you also undervalue.
No.
Yeah. I love that you're giving yourself so much permission, and you're okay with like, okay, you're taking care as well. I talk about this a lot when people want drastic change and they say quit the work. Sometimes they will schedule consultation calls with me and they're like, okay, so I quit my job last week. How do I find my career now? And I'm like, well, you're probably freaking out right now. You're probably thinking about bills and all the responsibilities. And guess what? You can't access your creativity and your intuition when your survival mechanism is triggered. So we need to do it safely for you. And I think this is the way how to do it safely for you right now. And you owning that is so healing for so many people. I know, like hearing that will be so healing for so many people who also perhaps have that like idea that is not even theirs, that they need a dramatic shift right away.
That's like you've just named some really important things. And I remember when we started working, that was really important to me. I was like, I want to change, but I need to be safe. I don't want to have like this whole other kind of worms open. I mean, I was super close to at some point just being like, fuck everything, I'm going to quit. And then just being like, yeah, but that's going to just be another problem.
Just add another problem to the list.
So this way of going through it slowly. And I think for many people who haven't had a life where they can like really trust their inner voices and they have done what everyone else has wanted, like it's scary in the beginning because you don't even really feel confident and like, am I making this up? I remember asking you often, like, I don't know if I just made this up, if this is a thing or if this is just like my mind doing something fanciful. For me, just having on the one hand, this thing like, and you were always like, I'm never going to put you in a position where you are going to take a giant pay cut in order to make your career change. And that was very, that's supportive, I think. And then also just like slowly building the trust to be like, okay, now I feel like this is a bit of a play or a test role for me where I can just test out. Like I learned some things of myself, I go test it out in this role and then receive the feedback and then take the next step in my slow sort of bossa nova pace. And maybe, you know, like when I get more confident about actually now I know the things, maybe I'll move a bit faster, but
yes.
no pressure.
Yeah, that's the first time. And I do believe that after this experience, you will probably move differently. And also, if you had gone for the sudden career change, you would have doubted yourself so hard, you would have gotten back to square one. And I see this a lot sometimes with people who are like trying things and they'd be like, I'm just going to enroll to school and become psychotherapy, something you and I speak about. And I'm not saying that is not a potential career option. It's just not yet. And you know, you felt it out. But had you done that, I think all of those gremlin-y thoughts and programming that still to some extent is there would have attacked you so hard that you would have doubted everything about your life.
Oh man. So real. I'm just laughing because I can see it. Yeah. I can see it.
I lost it. What am I doing? Did I just ruin my life? Like all of those thoughts, if it's too sudden.
Yeah.
So normalizing the space is beautiful. Okay. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Oh.
On the spot. So what are some of the, maybe like I'll just give you one question and see where your intuition or mind will take you, which is like, what are some of your maybe biggest takeaways from the process? And at the same time, what would you like to advise to people who were in a similar position that you were in, that are feeling super confused, and it not necessarily maybe, oh, work with a coach, right? But like, what would you advise them? What would you advise to that Yvette a year ago?
So main takeaways, I think one of the hugest ones for me was just this thought work process is so helpful. Just seeing what is operating in the background, like this subconscious stuff that's just, quietly chugging away in the background, that informs so much of your life, and bringing as much of it as you can to consciousness. And then being intentional about, do I want to think this thought? Or can I actually help myself by thinking something that's more supportive? And we were talking previously about thought work, and it doesn't mean magical thinking or anything. It's just, there's so many thoughts. I think you say it like this, they live rent free in your head. And we don't question whether those are useful or not. But maybe it's important to be like, is this helping me, or can I replace it with something else? So the thought work was a huge takeaway for me. It's something that I'm going to continue to do. And then there were a couple of mantras that, they have become mantras now, but a couple of things that I learned in the sessions that I'm also going to take away. And for me, the first one is, you would end calls with me after we discovered that I like to play. You would end calls with, "Don't forget to play." And I loved it. So I'm just going to keep that one. Like, don't forget to play. Like, it doesn't have to be this boardroom suit and tie thing. Play. And so that was one mantra. And the other one is, there are no rules. There are no rules.
One. Oh my goodness. I get so much resistance when I say that to people. I was like, there are no rules. They're like, what do you mean, Velma? I can list a million rules.
And like that, like, don't forget to play. There are no rules. You can make it up. And the thought work are the things there's a couple of other things but I'll stay there with my key takeaways. And then what I would tell of anyone else on this journey, and what I would have told me at the point where I was like huddled under that desk at the office, is like, first, oh my God, I know it's hard. Just allow yourself to feel the pain of that dissonance between the life that you kind of are yearning for and the one that you have. That's really painful. Having someone else say, "Yeah, I know that sucks. I know it sucks. It's so real. You're not designed to live in a world that pushes you to, so like that commodifies you and commodifies your time, and it's just not built for human thriving. It's hard. And also the fact that you feel that pain it's good, because it shows that you're not numb anymore. You're not numb to like the way things are. You feel the pain, and then you can start to do something about it. I would be more worried about me if I didn't feel anything, because I would have just kept going. And then I would have turned like maybe 65 down the road and been like, I probably should have done something about this a little bit earlier. But yeah, if anyone is listening to this and they're 65, do it now. Like, it's not, I'm going to out my mom. My mom keeps saying things like, oh, it's too late. And I'm just like, so not. Like, I see so many people who feel that dissonance, and then they're like, yeah, actually, I want better for myself. I owe it to myself. So yeah, I think the first thing I would say is, ouch, I see that pain. I feel it. It's okay. And after you've had a chance to feel it, maybe you can also accept that it might be good for you. It might be a sign that you're out of the numb. And then sort of in line with that, the second thing I'd say is like, all the compassion that you can muster for yourself, please show yourself all of that compassion. Show yourself your own care, because you you're first in that line. And in the initial stages, maybe that's tender, soft, really gentle care. I don't know how many of us get actually the kind of tender, soft, gentle nurturance that we need. So give yourself a lot of that. And then afterwards, like, kick it up a notch, because compassion isn't spineless. Compassion is fierce. You owe it to yourself to show yourself both kinds, I would say, like the tender face of compassion, but also like kick you in the butt compassion, which is like, I have to go to the gym now because it's good for me, and I have to, make this change because it's good for me. But start gentle and then like up it a notch. Just treat yourself well. And then the third thing I would say, which was so helpful to me when I realized it, is that you're not alone. And now I wanted to speak directly to anyone who is maybe in the place that I was in. You're not alone. So many people are going through exactly what you're going through in different sort of shades and nuances. And also, not only are different people suffering in the same way, that's not what I'm trying to point to, is that there are so many people who are rooting for you. There are so many people right now in this very moment who want you to find your path. And I want you to find your path. And I know Vilma wants you to find your path. So there's like two people that you don't know right now who want you to get there and who are literally 100% rooting for you, because the world needs you, like we need you. And just the way you are, with the skills that you have, you're needed, and we've got your back. And then finally, I think I will just say to my little self and to anyone else who needs to hear it, don't forget to play.
Don't forget to play. Oh my goodness, you made me emotional. This is so beautiful. I love what you said, that compassion is not always spineless, right? Compassion sometimes looks like you getting up and doing what you need to do for you to support you and take care of it and make decisions and move forward and go through that hard period. And you will not believe this when you say you're not alone. I pulled an oracle card before our recording, and it literally says you're not alone.
Oh.
I love that it happened. I pulled it and I was like, it's so interesting that I'm pulling You're Not Alone for Yvette. And then now I understand why I pulled it. It was just a reinforcement of that message that I guess we need to give to people, and probably people need to hear as well. So I love that you allowed this message of the universe to come through you. Thank you so much.
Oh, goosebumps. Like, so Vilma just showed me the oracle card on Zoom, and I'm just like tingly.
Tingling. Oh my goodness. This is so beautiful, Yvette. Thank you for your calming, beautiful, loving presence. Thank you for sharing your story, which I know will inspire people. Thank you for being an example of what's possible. Your journey was worth it for you and for so many whose lives you will touch. And I was so honored to be part of it. Hopefully it's not the end of the journey. Me and Yvette were sometimes like saying like, no, we don't want to end. I don't want to end. I want to end the process. So thank you so much for bringing your wisdom and your kindness and your love and your story to the podcast.
Oh, Vilma, like I don't know what to say right now. Like, I feel just so grateful that you accompanied me, and I want to thank you for all the work you've done with me and helping me, showing me, reminding me of my blueprint when I forget, but also just like my life since like embarking on this process is so much more peaceful and calm, and I feel more myself. And I like, literally, I do not know what to say to you to say thank, like I can't do it, but it was such an incredible investment for me, and I really just want to say a huge thanks. And one of the things that I don't think I ever said, like I've said thank you a bunch of times, and it's not really going to do justice, but there's a couple of things I realized that I didn't articulate, and one of them was, and it's just that you showed up with so much excitement for where I could go, And there was just this support, hope, and excitement that I couldn't hold myself. Like I couldn't be hopeful, and I didn't have excitement. And you were just the custodian, like the this brave, optimistic, just this really fierce custodian of my excitement and my hope until I could hold it again. And I really want to thank you for that. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Oh, making me cry. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much. I love that I could do that for you. My fierce custodian excitement, which doesn't make sense sometimes, but oh goodness. Thank you so much, Yvette. It was such a pleasure. Thank you again for being here. Thank you for doing the full circle moment of listening to the podcast and now being someone who's here on the podcast sharing your story. I know that probably this is going to create ripple effects and someone else will hear it and maybe they'll come in and, bet on themselves. Because obviously, like you said, it's an investment in all kinds: money, time, effort, energy, trust, trusting in the process, trusting in person in front of you, trusting in yourself. There's a lot of trust that is required to actually take those steps. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Yvette. And I'm saying goodbye to the listeners and I'll speak to you next week. Bye. Thank you for spending time with me today. If you'd like to take this work further and have my one-on-one support in changing careers using my easy holistic process, head over to the show notes and book your consultation call to be added to the waiting list to work together. Can't wait to meet you.